It's 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday. You're already half asleep, bills paid, leftovers in the fridge, alarm set for 6:15. Nothing dramatic, just a regular night. Then your phone buzzes. You reach for it without thinking, force of habit, and you read it. Hey, I hate to even ask, but could you send me $200 till Friday? I wouldn't reach out if I wasn't desperate. You set the phone face down on the nightstand, pick it up again, read it one more time, and somewhere in the back of your mind, before you've even thought it through, you already know you're gonna say yes. You don't remember exactly when you became this person. It didn't happen all at once. There was no moment where someone handed you a title. No ceremony, no choice you consciously made. It just accumulated. First, it was your younger brother. Car broke down outside Columbus. Needed $300 to get it towed and fixed. You had it. He didn't. Simple math. Then it was your college roommate. Rent was short by $150. Landlord was threatening fees. You'd known him 6 years. What were you supposed to say? Then your cousin, then your coworker, then someone you hadn't spoken to in 8 months who found your number again right around the time their check didn't clear. You became the guy, the one people call when the math stops working. Here's what nobody talks about: the people who become the financial safety net for everyone around them. They're usually not rich. They're not sitting on investment accounts. They don't have a second property. They're not pulling 6 figures with money to spare. They're just stable. They pay their rent on time. They've got maybe $800 to $1,500 sitting in a checking account as a buffer. They have a decent credit score, maybe 680, maybe 720 if they've been careful. They look like they have it together. And in America, looking like you have it together is basically the same as having it together. So people come to you. The first few times it feels like the right thing to do. Your brother paid you back. Took 3 weeks instead of 1, but he paid you. Your roommate covered you the next month when you were short on groceries. It balanced out. It felt like community. Like that's what people are supposed to do for each other. And maybe it is. And maybe it is. But something shifts quietly, without announcement. The repayments start coming slower. Then they stop coming with apologies attached. Then they just stop, and you notice something else. Nobody asks how you're doing before they ask. The text doesn't start with "how have you been?" It starts with the number. Let's just do the math, not dramatically. Just honestly, you're making around $51,000 a year. That's close to the median individual income in a mid-sized American city. Think Cincinnati, Tulsa, Richmond, somewhere real. After federal tax, state tax, Social Security, Medicare, you're clearing somewhere around $3,250 a month. Rent on a 1-bedroom, $1,100. Car payment, $330. Car insurance, $185. Utilities and phone combined, $215. Student loans, $274. Because of course, groceries, gas, the $18 copay every time you see your doctor, the subscription you keep forgetting to cancel. By the time the fixed costs are covered and you've eaten and filled your tank, you have roughly $450 to $550 left. On a good month, if nothing breaks, if your check engine light stays off, if your body cooperates, that $200 you just sent, that's not just $200. That's almost half of your monthly breathing room gone till Friday, which you already know never actually means Friday. You don't say any of this out loud. That's the defining characteristic of being the fixer. You absorb everything silently. You've trained yourself to do it so consistently you don't even notice anymore, because there was that one time you said no, maybe 2 years ago. A different situation, different person, you said, "I really can't right now." And the energy on the other end of that phone changed. There was this pause, this silence that somehow communicated everything without a single word. Oh, okay, no worries. But it was worries. You could feel it through the screen. And for the next 3 weeks, there was this low-grade tension between you two, this unspoken distance, like you had failed some test nobody told you were taking. So you learned, saying yes costs money, but saying no costs something harder to measure. Psychologists have a name for the position you're in. It's sometimes called the burden of competence. When someone in a family or a social circle demonstrates that they can manage money while pay bills on time, handle a crisis without falling apart, they unconsciously become the load-bearing wall. Everyone leans, not out of malice, out of relief. Because when you're drowning and someone nearby looks like they're standing on solid ground, you reach for them. It doesn't matter if that ground is thinner than it looks. Maybe you became this person for a specific reason. Maybe you watched a parent fight with a credit card company on the phone when you were 10, lying on the carpet pretending not to hear, hearing everything. Maybe you were the first in your family to have a job with direct deposit, a W-2, a health plan with actual dental coverage. Maybe you just decided early that you were going to be different. And you were. You are, but that difference has a price nobody mentioned. Here's what the last 14 months actually look like written out. You've sent money to 6 different people. Some of it was $50, some was $300. One time it was $600 because it was a real emergency and you couldn't look away from that. Total sent approximately $2,700. Total returned maybe $850 generously. The remaining $1,850. That's not a dramatic number, it won't make headlines. But that was the emergency fund you were quietly building, $150 a month. For over a year, watching the number grow with that specific private satisfaction of seeing your own discipline reflected back at you. It's gone now. Not stolen, not lost in any way you can point to, cleanly just redistributed into other people's lives while yours stayed still. Meanwhile, your actual life kept its own schedule. Your car needs 2 new front tires. The tread is past the safe line. You've been telling yourself you'll do it next paycheck for 6 weeks now. Your dentist flagged a cracked molar in October. Estimated repair out of pocket, $1,200. You've been chewing on the left side of your mouth ever since. Your student loan servicer sent a letter about an upcoming payment recalculation. You read the first paragraph and then set it on the counter where it's been sitting under a takeout menu for 11 days. None of these things alone would break you, but together they form something, this low-frequency hum of financial pressure that runs underneath everything. Under your commute, under your conversations, under the dinners where you're sitting across from people you love, doing math in your head. That's new. That wasn't happening 2 years ago. And still, the texts keep coming. I know the timing is terrible, but I hate asking you of all people, but I just need to get through this week and then I'm good. You've heard every version of that sentence, and here is the part that is almost impossible to say out loud. You've started feeling something toward people you genuinely love, not hatred, nothing that clean, just this quiet, corrosive resentment. It shows up at the wrong times. You'll be at your cousin's birthday dinner and someone will make a joke about money and you'll smile, but something behind your eyes won't be smiling. You'll be on the phone with your brother and he'll say, "I've just been stressed lately." And you'll say, "Yeah, I get that," and you will mean it. But you'll also be thinking about the $300. You didn't used to think about the $300. That bothers you more than the money does. There's something specific that happens to the person who becomes financially reliable in their circle. Over time, you stop being a person to them. Not consciously, not cruelly. You become infrastructure, like a highway that connects 2 cities. People drive it every day without once thinking about what it costs to maintain it, without wondering if the bridge has been inspected lately, without considering what happens if it finally gives. They're not ungrateful, they just stop seeing it, and somewhere along the way, you stopped asking them to. You didn't make a decision to start pulling back. It happened gradually, the way most real changes happen. You started responding to certain texts a little slower. You started saying things are a little tight right now more often, even when they weren't catastrophically tight, just tight enough that you needed the buffer. You started treating your own financial security with the same protectiveness you used to give away freely, and the reactions varied. Some people understood, nodded, didn't push. still called you on a random Thursday just to talk. Some people quietly stopped calling as much, and that part sits with you in a way the money never did. Because you never wanted to be the person who keeps a ledger. That was never the goal. You wanted to be someone who shows up, who makes things easier, who doesn't flinch when someone needs something. That instinct is not a flaw. It might actually be one of the most decent things about you, but there's a version of generosity that operates without limits, and that version slowly starts costing you choices. Not dramatic ones, not the kind of losses that show up in a story, quiet ones. There was a job posting in Denver last spring, role you were actually qualified for, better pay, fresh start. You didn't apply, not because you didn't want to, because you couldn't afford to be between paychecks for 5 or 6 weeks while you got settled. You didn't have the cushion anymore. That cushion was in someone else's account. There was a certification program you bookmarked 14 months ago, $800. Would have taken 4 months, could have bumped your salary band. You've pushed it back 3 times. There's a reason it keeps getting pushed back. There's a number that explains it. You just don't say the number out loud. It's 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday. The phone is still in your hand. $200. Till Friday. You open the app. You look at the balance for a second longer than usual. You type the amount, and right before you hit confirm, you stop. Not for long. Just a moment. Just long enough to feel the full weight of what you're about to do, and then you do it anyway, because that's who you are. Because saying no still costs something you're not ready to pay, because somewhere underneath all of it, you still believe that showing up for people matters, even when they don't show up for you. You set the phone down, lie back, stare at the ceiling in the dark, and something settles into your chest that you don't have an exact word for. Not anger, not self-pity, just this quiet, flat, almost weightless recognition that in every calculation you've run over the last 14 months, in every moment of weighing what you could afford to give, there was always one person's name you left off the list. Friday comes, no transfer notification, no text, you don't follow up. You already know how that conversation ends. So you adjust, move the numbers around again, push the tires to next paycheck, keep chewing on the left side, leave the loan letter under the takeout menu, and you keep going, because that's what you do. That's what you've always done. Somewhere in America tonight, someone responsible is lying awake running numbers that shouldn't be this tight. They paid their bills, they showed up, they did everything right, and they're still short, not because they failed, because they kept catching everyone else before they ever let themselves fall.